For a little bit more on this, we're now joined by South Africa's High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ambassador Thami Mseleku. Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The two powerhouses of the continent, Nigeria and South Africa, we really should be leading the way on the continent in terms of country relations and business relations and movement of people.
Indeed, Peter, as the two ministers observed, it should be the case. In fact, we are the two leading economies on the continent, and we definitely should be far ahead of where we are in relation to the just raised. And that is what this meeting in Pretoria was actually assessing as to whether we are really moving at a pace that will take us to that level that we want to reach. And of course, everybody agrees that these two economies, these two countries, must make sure that the relations between them, the two of them, are actually strong and they are exemplary so as to lead Africa into the right direction.
Have we been able to ascertain what some of the hurdles have been that have slowed us in terms of not being where we need to be?
Indeed, there are a number of them. Of course, some of them are beyond our own control because when we have some changes in government, both sides at some point there was a change of government and the new governments were trying to reassess, and then at some point we began to look inward as we face various challenges. We also have challenges that have recently come with COVID. However, our assessment has been that there is less engagement somehow on a number of memoranda of understandings which are signed, which would then lead to implementation. There is very little movement on those, and therefore the two ministers were very emphatic that we need to ensure acceleration in this regard. So basically, apart from other issues, some of these issues of mutual substitution and so on are also underlying factors at some point in some instances. But generally, the relationship is very good at the leadership level.
So Nigeria's got a huge population, and that obviously is attractive to businesses from all over the world, South Africa in particular. We do have a presence there, but we've also seen a number of companies go in and pull out. Has it just been a case of commercial work perhaps not working out, or have there been genuine obstacles that the Nigerian authorities can smooth so that businesses can invest and stay there?
Peter, let us say that it's a mixture of both. In some instances, some of the decisions that companies take are actually just based on company rationalization of their operations, where they decide that we no longer need to be here, we need to be there. But generally, there are very serious, specific concerns that the minister said, which have been raised by South African businesses that have had to pull out. Most of them, look, there are various regulatory obstacles everywhere. Even here in South Africa, we're trying to actually deal with some of these regulatory obstacles, which the president always talks about, for us to actually make it easy for people to do business in South Africa. However, it's more at the operational level. Sometimes, if you take a ShopRite, for example, sometimes it's a question of the goods that will stay at customs for a while until they actually expire because the processing is not taking place very quickly. And by the time they get out there, they need to be got rid of at a very big loss. And so it's those issues of turnaround time of various non-tariff barriers, as it were, that lead to some of the companies pulling out of Nigeria. But there's another element, of course, which relates to the fact that you started by saying that the market in Nigeria, in terms of numbers, is huge. But sometimes we overestimate that market without perhaps delineating it to actually be able to say how many of the people within that population would actually be able to have access to the kinds of products that we bring. Therefore, once we begin to ask those questions, as the companies themselves will begin to realize that part of this has to do with the country itself having to develop so that this market can actually be able to access the products that we are bringing. So it's a number of factors.
Another thorny issue, and this is perhaps where you can play a role actually, is the movement of people. Nigerians have been complaining that it's exceptionally hard to get a visa to come to South Africa, and there's sometimes accusations of retaliation by Nigeria allowing movement into their country. Where are we with that? Because clearly when people feel like they're being unnecessarily restricted, it doesn't foster good relations.
Definitely, Peter. In fact, our minister actually picked up that issue as a very critical issue for us to continue to solve, because perception is actually a very big thing. Some people it's real. There are challenges with regard to our visa processing. They mainly have to do with capacity. Let me tell you, Nigerians actually generally love to travel and to travel to places like South Africa. And so as we get more numbers of applicants, then we actually find that we have a number of backlogs. Now within that, there are also challenges. The Minister of Foreign Affairs from Nigeria also acknowledged that some of the people who have had bad intentions and have actually acted very badly in our country in terms of criminal activity have actually dented the image of Nigeria, not only in South Africa, but almost everywhere in the world. And it's up to the Nigerians themselves to actually begin to clean up that operation. Therefore, the visa process itself, for some time, has had to be much more thorough to ensure that those that are coming in are really legitimately supposed to be given visas. Now, unfortunately, that creates a kind of backlog for people who are genuinely supposed to be coming here, like investors, like business people, academics, etc. But the Ministry of Home Affairs has recently actually assisted in many ways. First of all, we've actually enhanced our capacity in Nigeria with some of the officials that have come in to assist there. And secondly, we've actually streamlined certain systems. For example, we are now focusing on ensuring that we definitely make sure that business people who are genuine CEOs, chairpersons of board members, and other actors like that, which are academics and artists, etc., are actually isolated from the rest of the people who then clog the system up so that we can be able to give them longer-term visas. And we're already starting to do that. We're already starting to see improvements in that regard. So indeed, yes, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're facing.
All right. So, I mean, we had the South Africa-Nigeria Binational Commission set up as far back as 1999. So one wonders what steps, advances could this meeting between the two foreign affairs ministers could have done that we failed to do since 1999? Well,
Peter, let me just put this differently. Remember that the actual binational commission itself was established in 2019 when President Buhari visited South Africa here for this bilateral relationship to be actually upgraded to the level of the president. Before it was a joint committee, it was actually at a ministerial level. And it was uplifted to the presidential level in 2019. And so this, in fact, was the second binational commission was in Nigeria in December 2021, and it resolved that instead of us just coming together and resolving that we do this, that, and then come together 2 years later, we need a midterm review of what is happening to the implementation of this agreement. So this meeting was actually a midterm review of the decisions that were taken in 2021 in Abuja, so that the two ministers of foreign affairs could go back to the president and say, we have a problem here, we're advancing here, we need intervention here. And so many of the resolutions are actually, from this meeting, after the assessment, we're actually saying there are areas where we will have to ask the cabinet, we have to ask our ministers of foreign affairs to talk to their colleagues to intervene, because perhaps at the official level, there seems to be no movement on those matters. These are matters that trade, very critical matters, trade and industry, and the matters such as, in defense, for example, where we've had to postpone meetings and implementation of certain decisions, and mining and minerals, there we have had to actually say we need to lift level, not just at the level of directing officials to work on them, but actually urging or requesting of the ministers that are involved. So our ministers of foreign affairs will be going back to their cabinets, their respective cabinets, as well as to their colleagues to say, please assist us to put this forward. The 1999 reference is that the first relationship establishment was actually 29 years ago. And of course, there were years of highlights which we all reminisce about between President Obasanjo and President Beki, where they were actually working as synergy at all levels to be able to ensure that we move Africa forward.
Ambassador, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and giving us some insights into this growing relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you to your viewers.
Okay. That's Ambassador, South Africa's High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ambassador Thami Mseleku, speaking to us about this ongoing growth in the relationship between South Africa and Nigeria. The Foreign Affairs Ministers of both countries meeting and moving these discussions forward. So some of the issues that have been slowing down or perhaps not giving enough energy to growing faster the relationship between the two countries are being dealt with.